Okay, hello. I see people trickling in. I'm so happy you're all here today. We have a very
Hiya.
special inside session planned. And I'm going to start by introducing our wonderful panelists. And I want to start by thanking Joy for running tech for us today. It's your first time. Be nice. Thank you, Joy. It really helps me to have you on my team. So, bio time. Hayley Kiyoko is a celebrated pop artist, actress, director, author, and LGBTQ plus advocate. Known for roles in Disney's Lemonade Mouth and HBO's Insecure, Kiyoko's solo breakthrough came with her 2018 album Expectations, which Rolling Stone praised for being at the forefront of an unapologetically queer pop movement. Yeah, I added that part. Since then, she has gained millions of streams, won an MTV VMA for Push Artist of the Year, sold out tours worldwide, and established herself as a two-time New York Times best-selling author with her YA novels, Girls Like Girls, 2023, and Where There's Room for Us, 2025. Building on her creative success, Kiyoko makes her feature film directing debut with Girls Like Girls, produced by Mark Platt, BuzzFeed, and Focus Features. Named one of NPR's 21st century's most influential women musicians, Hayley Kiyoko champions hope and authenticity through storytelling across multiple mediums. Thank you for being here, Hayley. And
Thanks
now we
for
also have
having me.
Jess. Jess is a repeat Inside Sessions panelist. This is her second time. So I'm gonna read
Yeah.
her, I'll read her bio and then y'all will do the talking. Okay, Jess is
Great.
part of the next generation of composers redefining the sound of modern cinema and television. Her music blends the emotional depth of orchestral storytelling with the texture of electronic and folk influences, creating a style that's both cinematic and deeply human. Her credits include Sony Amazon's Cinderella, directed by Kay Cannon, which became the #1 streaming film worldwide and earned Jess her first BMI award. Woo! She also scored the Jennifer Lawrence comedy No Hard Feelings. I just watched that. It's hilarious. Ryan Murphy's anthology series American Horror Stories. I also have seen that. And Nicole Peoni's, I've probably said that wrong, apologies to Nicole, stylish crime caper, The Kill Room, starring Samuel L. Jackson and Uma Thurman. Jess recently composed the scores for Focus Features. Hayley Kiyoko directed drama Girls Like Girls, which we'll be chatting and yapping about today. And just finished working on Swifties, a documentary about Taylor Swift super fans whose lives were changed by the Eras tour. Next up, she'll be scoring Greatest Night of Summer, directed by her longtime collaborator, Nicole Phone. Nicole or
Hey,
Nicole?
Nicole Payon.
Oh, that's right. Sorry, I meant to edit that.
Oh,
Nicole Pay.
good.
Thank you. Her love of music began in her youth while studying ballet and theater in New York City, eventually leading her to Warner Bros. Studios in London, where she was recruited by Hans Zimmer to apprentice at Remote Control Productions. After honing her craft as a music editor and additional composer, she found a pivotal mentorship under Academy Award winning composer Michael Dana. An alumna of the Universal DreamWorks Composers Initiative and a proud member of the Alliance for Women Film Composers, Jess has had her music performed on stages around the world, from the Globe Theatre in London to the Joffrey Ballet in Chicago to the Wiltern Theatre right here in Los Angeles. Wow, that's a lot of awesome stuff, which we will unpack in this first question I have, which is, can you both tell us a little bit about each of your backgrounds, how you got started in your art making, and some key points along the way that maybe weren't touched on in the bios?
Hit it,
Um,
babe.
I mean, for me, I started writing music because I didn't have an outlet to express myself. I felt very isolated navigating my queerness and being biracial, and so I picked up a guitar and started writing songs in my bedroom or playing piano, and that kind of just became my language of expression. And I think throughout that music has kind of led me to different pivots and pathways through storytelling and writing and writing novels. And I think directing for me has always been the thing I've done, but I never realized that's what I did. And I discovered that through directing my music videos. I've directed over 11 music videos for myself, and I think a lot of my artistry has been built from a place of necessity because I couldn't hire a director, I directed. I couldn't find a band, so I just wrote music. Like, all these points in my life has kind of led me to a slight pivot.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, I similarly, I think, found music because I was um, kind of a loner kid and very insecure, and I wanted to try to find my voice. And so, I was a dancer and I did theater as a kid, and I loved being a part of a community in that respect. And then through doing that, I kind of doubled down on the music side of things, and I've played in bands throughout college, and then I went to the School of Audio Engineering to learn how to produce and engineer. I thought before I ever got into film composition and TV composition, I thought I'd be like Sylvia Massey or T-Bone Burnett. I thought I'd be a record producer. Um, but then my first gig out of school was assisting a film composer in New York City. And then the rest is history because it's like the perfect marriage of storytelling and music and writing music. So it became my calling. So
Awesome.
yeah.
So I'm curious too. My next question is chronological. Is Girls Like Girls your first collaboration together, or have you worked together before? If so, what
Our
did you
first
work on?
time.
It's your first time. Okay, so how did y'all
Mhm.
meet? How did this connection happen? And I want to hear about the aesthetic because I haven't seen the film yet. I think I'm going to try to see it tonight at the AMC, but I have watched the trailer many times at the AMC. And so I have an idea of the aesthetic, and I'm curious how y'all landed there. So that's a lot of questions at once to unpack, but let's go. Connection, aesthetic. How did you make this brainchild together?
I mean, so the father is played by Zach Braff, and I was deep in post production and needed the right composer for this film, and so I had seen him post Jessica like on his Instagram, and I was like, hey, like, is she good? Do we like her? And so he made the connection, and Jess and we got coffee at Jones on Third and chatted away. And I think, women specifically have a different language than women and men. And so I think it was so vital for me to try to find a woman composer for this film. All of the head of departments are women on this film. And yeah, Jess was just perfect for this. I mean, I needed to find someone who was able to communicate really well and to be able to create and support, this film in the way it needs without ego. And I think we just like hit it off immediately.
What she said.
Awesome. That's lucky
Yeah,
when that happens. When you have
yeah.
well, in a way, I honestly do feel that film scoring and collaborating with other musicians as a film composer, communication is the number one skill you have to have. I tell my students at CSUN that every time. I don't think they believe me most of the time, but I do think it's true. You have to be a good communicator to successfully collaborate.
Yeah, I agree. I think like directing this film, you can be a very talented musician and not have the tools to be a composer. It's just you have to be able to work on deadlines, you have to be able to communicate, you have to be able to change your vision multiple times. Like it's a very different skill than just being able to emote and create something beautiful. And so, yeah, I mean, Jess and I had tons of playlists. The film was set in 2006, and definitely go check out the movie tonight or listen to the film score, which is up on Spotify. That highlights some of the cues from the film. And I mean, just feel free to jump in, but I think sonically for me, because it was such a nostalgic story and a personal story, I, initially was leaning into more synths, and then we kind of like landed on interpolating Girls Like Girls and having that be kind of this haunted motif throughout. But it was super collaborative.
Yeah, and also in terms of building the palette and the aesthetic, I really wanted to use Hayley's DNA within the composition itself. So, Hayley came in and she recorded vocals, and sometimes we used the vocals, and then sometimes I created an instrument that I masked, so it became like the underbelly pads and things that I was using, so you don't hear the oohs and ahs, but still we've got her DNA like integrated into the score. And I just thought that was really important because for all of the reasons, but I wanted to honor her in that way. And so yeah, we had a really beautiful time kind of figuring out what the sonic quality of the score should be, and also because it's Pacific Northwest, and even like the opening shot you'll see tonight, Connor. I mean, it's so beautiful, the trees, the environment. So I kind of took all of that as information, and I was like, okay, there's got to be something, like ethereal and warm about it. But yeah, so there were all of these different layers that helped like inform the two of us as to how we could kind of build this out.
Mm, that's so wicked. I love that. So now I have a few thoughts spiraling from that. One of them being the song. The song, as I understand it in my research, was a music video for, or the film was a music video first, that then became a feature film, which is rad. I think it's also really cool, Hayley, that you sort of you mentioned people not having ego in your work, which I think is very rare, and to sort of let go and let someone else step in and take this musical child you already had and add their own flavor to it is great. And Jess, you having the respect to kind of give that back and say, let's use your voice in the score, very symbiotic and beautiful. I'm curious what that process was like for y'all. Were you in person together, or were you doing it remotely? Was the songwriting process separate from the score, or was it together at the same time, kind of?
Yeah, I mean, so for anyone who doesn't know, Girls Like Girls was a song that I co-wrote and released in 2015, which was a music video, and then that music video led to the book version, which was released in 2023 through many reasons, because the movie was just never getting made, and I just wanted the story to exist. If the movie never existed, and then the book led to the green light of the film, I'm skipping years and years of challenges and nuances to all of that, and then yeah. So I think this IP is unique because I think in most films you're finding the sound with the composer. With this, because it was a pre-existing IP, which was kind of fun. Like, Jess was able to honor that and to be able to go, okay, this is what the world is and what it has been to so many people and to my community at large. How do we extend limbs to this feeling, and what does that look like, what does that sound like? And so yeah, we would just get in the room together in person as much as we could, and try things out and see what worked and what didn't, because sometimes you're like, oh, I want a big wall of synths, and then you end up with a piano. Like, you just you don't really know until you see it, with the cut. And but I think what's beautiful where we landed is you never really hear the Girls Like Girls song until the very, very end of the film, that plays during the ending credits.
Yeah, it's like little Easter eggs, there's like motific moments, but like, we never give it away until the end because, it's something you want to save and savor. But yeah, so that was, that component. And then I was really excited. Haley was like, let's do some song stuff together. And I was like, hell yeah. And so she sent me like a laundry list worth of amazing demos that she had written. I don't know, you must have been what? You were
I
15,
was like,
16.
yeah, 16, yeah,
Yeah.
around the time.
And so, I went through them and I was like, hey, I think these three or these four could be really fantastic. And And then we brought in our dear friend Scott Effman, who's a great producer, and we just got to work on several different songs, and then we co-wrote a song, the three of us together, called "Falling Through," that's in the film. It plays under a pivotal moment in the movie. Coley, the lead, is really kind of processing what she's going through and trying to find a new, what would you say, Haley? I mean, I don't want to give it away for those that haven't seen it, but it's a moment, it's a moment of growth. Let's just say it's a moment of growth, like her independent growth. Um and so, yeah, so we just sat down and we talked about the scene and what was necessary or what was needed musically and lyrically. And it's really Coley's point of view, and so we wanted to kind of honor that and make sure that we were kind of in her mind, in her zone. And we had a blast doing it. And I don't know, I mean, it felt like it happened quickly. We were
Yeah,
just in the
it
room
was
for a
very
day and like it
fluid.
came out. Yeah.
Yeah, and I remember, and what's so special is when you hear Falling Through, that sample, You is actually a sample from my 16-year-old self, my voice, and one
Yeah.
of the demos. And then we wrote a song on top of that. And so it was so special to be, I think this film is celebrating our younger self and those parts of our heart that we abandon to survive in society. And so it was so special to kind of have my younger self supporting my older self, I guess.
Yeah. And it was fun because we took her vocal, and at first we were like, I remember the three of us, and we were like, uh-oh, well, what are you saying there? And then we were like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't even matter. It sounds so good. We'll just like kind of mask it and manipulate it.
Yeah.
It doesn't even matter lyrically what it is because it's such a cool vibe and it's such an homage to like young Haley. So it was really fun to use it.
That is the type of nugget that gets me really thrilled about music and collaborative art making, because like maybe on our own we wouldn't have this idea, but when we fuse with someone else, you get a different creative juice that you don't have solo, which is always interesting and cool. And I've listened to the entire score and the movie album of Haley's, of the songs, and I can totally see the through line of the fusing of how y'all, I don't even know what the word is exactly. You kept your musical identities, but also made something unique to the two of you together.
Hmm.
I also am curious, this is kind of related. How did it feel to you, Haley, finding a composer who spoke your language? Because for me, when I do find a director who, like, I just worked on a film where we did songs together. The film ended up being based around a song that we wrote together, the whole score, an hour and 7 minutes of music based on this one song. And we would like send voice messages to each other, raw, ugly, not cute, out of tune voice messages to each other. And I feel like that trust and vulnerability is really rare and special. So I'm curious to hear y'all's take on how it felt to learn each other's language.
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone has a different language. You can say green and someone could think of a bluish color. And I think, like, directing this film, I learned that very quickly that, not everyone speaks the same language. And so, if ever was like, hey, I wanted to feel more verby, I want to feel like this, like, what does that mean for someone else? And so I think it's just like establishing that toolbox of, what things mean to Jess and what things mean to me. Or if I watch something and I'm like, luckily I'm a musician. So, not only was I like, I'm not feeling this, but like, let's mute the bass, let's mute this, let's mute that, let's add this. And I think that was just like in general valuable because I also understand being a musician. And I think that just was really helpful in our process. And I think you have to be open, though. You have to understand that every musician is different and everyone has a different process, and you have to support that and know that people are going to think differently than you, and support that experience as opposed to being like, no, it has to be this, or the highway. So, I think as musicians, we love to be collaborative. So I loved collaborating with Jess and figuring out our language and figuring out the voice of who Coley is and what her experience was and what that feeling is. Because, sometimes you can listen to a cue, but then when you see it with the scene, it's distracting or it's pushing a different agenda. And I think Jess had such great experience with, composing so many other films as well. That was really helpful, that she was able to bring that experience to the project.
Thanks. Yeah, I mean, I also, from my point of view, um, there was a deeper layer to working on this project, emotionally for me than any other film I've ever worked on. I felt I felt like I had to do it justice, and for Hayley and for the community that this is representing. And so not only did I want to be open and collaborate because I love this woman and I trust her, but also like I'm part of the storytelling, I'm not trying to insert myself, or make sure that my idea is the dominant idea. Like none of that. I never operate like that anyways, but like this was an experience where we were so open with each other and vulnerable with each other. And it was such a joy to have Hayley because she's such a great musician. So I didn't have to sit and try to interpret her notes. I mean, she'd be in the back of the room, like doing an email, and she'd be like, yeah, that, not that. And I'm like, great, great, great. How about that? And then I'd be like, come over, you play it. And it was so fun. It's like, I've never had that experience working on a movie before, and I probably won't again until she makes another one. So, but it was
Yeah.
such a blast, it was really like we were in our own little band in a way. So, yeah, it was a joy.
That's exciting to hear. I think for everyone on the call, composer or not, I think most people on this call are composers. Knowing that your collaborative matches are out there in the world making their own art and just waiting for you to hear it and for you to sync up and resonate. To sync up, speaking of syncing up, let's talk about representation in art and film. That was a horrible segue. Sorry, everyone. Representation in art and film is so important, and our world is severely lacking queer, specifically sapphic, coming of age romances. And this is in my own experience too. I've noticed this for many, many years. I'd love to hear about the development of the film from the music video in 2015 to now, how it became a fully fleshed out feature film. And this is a question that y'all probably don't have the answer to, but why are male queer stories prioritized over female queer stories? I've always thought that that is really obvious, because when I think through a list in my head, it's like Portrait of a Lady on Fire, but it doesn't even, there's just not many. Anyway, that's my long, I'm not good at being concise. That's my long.
No, it's totally fine. Well, thanks for bringing that up. A lot of people don't realize it, and then they go, "Oh, yeah, you're right." Yeah, gay male culture has so much representation and support. Um, Women are still not equal to men, so that's a huge contributor to why that's prioritized. I also just think like gay male culture and sapphic culture are viewed differently. So there's a lot of just stereotypes and narratives that are built into, each community. And I agree, like that's why I chose to try to get a movie made for 10 years, because not only do we have under 10 films for sapphic women, but they're predominantly all white. And there has not been a movie starring two POC women in over 20 years in the theaters. And that needs to be acknowledged and recognized, that most people don't realize, like, hey, this community literally gets to see themselves maybe every 20 years, and it doesn't represent everyone. So that was a huge part of why banging on the doors, being told no, being told, hey, we don't need this representation, we've already had it. They're thinking about the gay male culture, not sapphic women. and so I'm just constantly in Zooms and meetings and continually fighting for our stories to be told and heard. And it's really hard to get a movie made. You don't just write a script and submit it and hear back and then you're off to the races. It's an immense toll that you're taking on of trying to convince people with the money that these stories deserve to be told, and not only told but told in a big way. There's a big reason why most gay content is shot in Canada, because it's cheaper there, because people don't want to spend money. So it was just many, many years. We almost shot this movie in 2020, 2021, 2022, 2023. I put my music career on the back burner for this, pivoted, wrote the book. That led to finally getting the green light, because I think it's also just proving to the community and the industry at large that these stories aren't niche, that these stories are mainstream, that there's a need and want for this kind of representation. So a lot of it is having to prove that there's already a pre-existing fan base. You look at Cinderella, Spider-Man, all these IPs, like they want to know that people are going to show up. And so I think my mission as a director is to be able to change that and to create original IP for Sapphic women, and make sure we get movies in theaters, and that we're able to name 10 movies right off the top of our head that represent this massive, massive community.
That's rad. I was just now trying to think of 10. I don't have 10. I got about 3. And then I'm thinking of a specific role in Everything Everywhere All at Once. There's a small sapphic romance in there, but it's not the main thread.
Yeah.
So I agree. We should have 10 or more, ideally. I had another question spawn as you were speaking about that. Oh yeah, it's the next question, actually. This, I think about this a lot when I read books, when I have my own relationships. Women's relationships, friendships, romances, and more can be very complex, layered, and nuanced. I'd love to hear about how you tackled the music aspect of this film, because music too can be complex, layered, and nuanced. How did y'all incorporate women's relationships, the complexity? I mean, obviously the story already has that, but does the music reflect that at all? Or is it more about coming of age?
Yeah, I think it does reflect that. I think I always come at any project and think of myself as a storyteller first. I don't come in, oh, I'm a composer. I'm part of the storytelling team. So as you said, it's built in, right? It's the fabric of the film. So I think every decision that was made musically, whether it's the melodies or the sonic palette or any of that, I think, of course, like it's all inspired by and informed by this amazing love story. I keep kind of saying um, that it's such a beautiful story because it's so layered. It's about someone's experience, specifically Hayley's experience, and the sapphic love story, and a young woman dealing with grief regarding her parents. There's a lot of like very, very challenging material to work with in terms of emotionally what is there. And so I think, yeah, musically we were always kind of using that as the information in order to figure out how it should sound and feel, and making sure that the score there it brings levity, and it emotionally supports what's going on, but it doesn't overstep. And I think it doesn't happen in every film, but certainly in Hayley's film, it's just the performances were so strong and they were so good that it didn't need any help from me. Like no one needed any help. I was the score was there to really just support. And so it makes it certainly made my job easier because it was so well done and the performances were so beautiful. But yeah, always taking into account anything, any choice that was made was always informed by the story and the characters and the environment, as I mentioned earlier, time period, place. Um, I was thinking like I mentioned earlier, like the Pacific Northwest, and I think when I think of that area, right, like it's so beautiful, it's so green, but it's also rainy, and you're also indoors a lot, and that there's something. I think that was something like kind of in my subconscious where I was thinking about the isolation and then like the openness of like when the sun does come out and it's beautiful and it's green and it smells wonderful. I mean, this is a bit heady, but what I'm getting at is like all of that is really information in regards to how, we built the score and the decisions we made. So
That makes a lot of sense. Thank you.
mhm.
Thanks for diving deep with me. My next question's a little less deep. Did y'all, well, maybe it is deep. Okay, who knows? This is probably subjective. Did y'all
Find
have
out.
any it's like actually because of the wording, I'm like aesthetic usually is more like the veneer of something. But I'm curious, did y'all have any aesthetic references or inspirations when working on this? Hayley mentioned having some playlists. I'm curious what kind of references y'all kicked around back and forth. Obviously, Hayley's existing music. But was there anything other artists of the time or even like film references that y'all kicked around for this to get inspired by?
I mean, I
I'm
think,
literally pulling up the
yeah.
playlist.
I mean, I think, you know, I do music, so I think a lot of that was inspiration of just sonically. Like, I want to make sure that when people see this movie, they feel like Just said my DNA in it, and that it's not feeling separated from the experience in the film. And I think, in the '06 era, there's the M83, there's all these really cool bands. And again, like I went into this film thinking it was going to be very synth forward. And then we would go into it and realize this like simple piano melody would, kind of take the lead in things. And you have to just be open to exploring and allowing the medium to speak to you and where it needs to go and how to support. And like Jess said, it's so easy to add music into a film, but it's actually very challenging to remove music from the film and to find the moments where the music does need to inform the audience and does need to amplify the moments and beats. And that takes, a lot of collaboration to get there. And, Just did that so beautifully where, you know, it's the score is all over, but it's really only there when it has to be for these key beats, as opposed to, oh, the performances aren't making you emote. We need to make them feel, and we're going to do these chords to make them feel. So I actually think what Jess was able to tackle and what we were able to tackle is actually more challenging at times to do less is more, honestly.
Yeah. And Haley was very gracious because there was no score on any of the playlists. Like there was no like, references to other movies. It was just like songs and inspiration. And that was a much better way of approaching this because it was all about vibe and intention and energy and kind of sonic stuff. It wasn't about like, ooh, I watched this movie and I like this score. That's always challenging for anyone who's jumping onto a project. So I was like, thank you. I was so
We
grateful.
want to find our own sound,
Yes,
totally.
yes. So that was
Pioneer
amazing.
women. That is rare. I think almost never have I had a film that didn't have temp. Conceptually, I like that idea very much,
Oh, it was
but
amazing. It was
it's
amazing.
rare. I think it's an insecurity thing, probably. I'm not a director, I don't know, but like it's probably very scary to not have to truly let someone come in with like a blank mind on something. And I get
Hmm.
that. Control is like the most human tactic we
Yeah, I
use.
found the temp music was extremely distracting and it didn't allow me to figure out the edit. And I think I kind of hashed out the hardship in the edit, because if it wasn't working without music, then we would re-edit the scene. And so I think that that's just how I approached it. So by the time it hit Jess, it was really just about supporting it. And I did try to add a couple of temp pieces, and it just was terrible. And like it just was like distracting, and um I didn't like it. So we just didn't do that.
And I think we had some needle drops here and there that, that made it into the film. So that again, there was something to kind of work off of, and we were praying we would get Imogen Heap, and Haley got it, which was great. And so, there was there was a little something there. At least I knew, needle drop versus score moment, just in terms of kind of spotting and understanding like the layout of what I was doing. But yeah, it was amazing to not have to sit there and listen to temp and be like, oh boy.
Yeah,
Love it.
it's so distracting.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that's music to my ears, y'all. What was spotting like for you two? How did you decide what was going to be score versus what was going to be song?
Um, well, I think when you're working on a low budget film, that really informs that. We had four songs that we could get, and that was it. And so those were kind of pre-established within the film. And then, from there, Jess took it away, where it's like, here are the key scenes. Like, I would share with Jess, like, hey, these are the scenes that I think we need this for. Jess would look at them, send ideas back, find little nuggets and moments to help with the transitions. And, we just kind of like, can you continue to explore? But I think what's kind of special about having limited resources is you are kind of forced to um, make decisions really early on. You don't really have the resources to explore many different options. And we wrote this so we had four needle drops, we had three original songs, and then I ended up writing 10 other songs for the Inspired By album. And again, it comes from necessity. It's like we didn't need all this music in the movie, but as a musician, I wanted to continue the experience and the universe. After watching the movie, you come home and you get to listen to the film score album, you get to listen to the Inspired By album, and it just continues the dialogue. So I think within having limited resources, you are kind of forced to be very, very specific.
I mean, and Haley's so deep in this, but I just, as someone that knows her and loves her, I mean, what she has, how she's marketed this, and what she just explained is so brilliant. It's so brilliant, and it's just so wild what can come from being so limited, and having so little support. And I'm just in awe, and I just think it's absolutely incredible what she's done. And the response has been pretty amazing. So I think, I was always taught when I was learning this gig, you should be able to do you should be able to write something, and if it's good enough, you can have a string quartet play it, or you can have an orchestra play it. But if the melody is great and the intention is great and the harmony is, like it should work. You can make it work either way. If you can, and I think this is a great example of that. Like even though we just had the hypothetical string quartet, it's such a beautiful piece of art. We didn't need it would have been nice to have more resources, but we wouldn't have ended up with what we have, which is so special. And it's, so
That's a nice analogy. And you
yeah.
know what? When people send their mom a birthday card that they made with their own hands rather than a store-bought one, mom likes the handmade one better than the store-bought one anyway,
Totally.
because you both touched this project and like made it with your hands and your blood and your tears and your guts. Um, probably not your blood, tears, and guts, but maybe so. It takes a lot of guts to make a film. It takes a lot of guts to put your personal story out there. And it takes a lot of guts to make a story that's not immediately successful, like how you were saying earlier, Haley, about studios want IP that they already know will bring them money. So
Hmm.
taking a risk on something that people want to see, but maybe doesn't necessarily guarantee a
Mm-hmm.
Marvel crowd does take guts. So I applaud you both for that. Well, I do want to leave question time at the end for our audience, but I do have one broad question I'd like to ask. And that is my most concise question yet. What is next for you both?
I mean, I'm just living in this moment. I've waited 10 years for Girls Like Girls to be a film. And so I'm so excited for the Inspired by album to be out. And hopefully we'll get to play some more shows. And this film's still in theaters, I think, till the end of this week. And then we'll have streaming. So I'll be personally in Girls Like Girls universe for a while, trying to get this film to as many countries and territories as possible.
Amazing. Yeah, I mean, let's leave it at that. I've got some things, some plates spinning, but I'm similarly as support, as sidekick, I'm still in the Girls Like Girls world. I'm out there talking about it and promoting it and still very much in this zone too. So yeah, that's where I'm
Ride
at.
the wave.
Riding
I
the
love
wave.
that. Well, it is screening tonight at Universal City Walk, and it's also screening, I think, in the daytime too. And it's probably screening other places too. I just am an AMC A-lister, and I like to go there and
Yeah, it's at most of the
watch.
AMC's, but yeah.
It's probably in other theaters too. And if you're a cool person, you can go to those other theaters. And if you're a dork like me, you can go to the AMC. But let's see. Let me open it up for some audience questions. If anyone has a question for our wonderful panelists, put it in the chat, or feel free to unmute yourself and ask it verbally. It's also no pressure, but if you want to, you feel the pull, go for it.
I have a question. I'm on my treadmill. This is like embarrassing. Hi.
No, I need to be on my treadmill.
I've been vibing to you guys this whole time. Okay. Congratulations to both of you. This is like such a beautiful accomplishment. I have a really boring question just about the logistics of writing songs with the score and like doing it together, and who was involved. Were there music supervisors involved? How involved was the studio? And like, how did it work in terms of like Hayley, was your voice like, were you part of SAG for it, or was it all just like a licensed thing? If that makes sense.
I mean, Jess, I don't know if you're going to jump in, but we had a music supervisor, Rob Lowry. And so I think because of the limited resources, I kind of started with him of like, what can we get? What can we afford? And then from there would take that information to Jess and vice versa to be like, okay, here where the holes will be. Like, should we add music here or not? And to be honest, I feel like it was very one-to-one with Jess and I, which I don't know is necessarily every situation, which I'm sure Jess can add to that. But because I was a musician, I do feel like I had a lot of control of where things would go. And then I think Universal at times would give minor notes, but it was never like, okay, here comes the studio and they're gonna come ruin what we've done. Like, I also think working with Focus Features specifically, they're very filmmaker driven, so we weren't doing like the Minions, so I think because this was an original IP and because it was with Focus Features specifically, I do think they relied more on the filmmaker's taste than anything. But just, you have more experience in that world.
Oh, absolutely. No, absolutely. And that's and we were lucky. And the notes came, at the very, very end, once there was really an assembly, like kind of not a locked cut, but almost a locked cut. And I get it. They have to justify their paychecks. So they, they gave a couple notes here and there, and that was fine, but they were very, they always like referred to Hayley, and if there was a discrepancy over something, Hayley would win that one. So as she said, like they're a solid studio that is very, directorially focused, and we were lucky to have Mark Platt as a producer on the film. I mean, he's such a G. He's amazing. So yeah, it was pretty smooth sailing for the most part. Yeah. Yeah.
For that question, Michelle.
Thank
Does
you,
anyone
Michelle.
else?
Good luck on the workout.
Hiya. Sorry, can you hear me? I don't know.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, it's like a lot of background. It all sounds really interesting. I love the way you talk about everything and kind of like letting a medium speak to you and coming at it from a place of storytelling. And yeah, I think that reminded me of like an interview I heard by Hans Zimmer, which I know you said at the beginning that Jessica, you worked with him. He said something like whenever he's collaborating on a film, they kind of talk about anything but the music at first. It's kind of like building that relationship and like talking about everything that is around the music, right? And then I found that really interesting because sometimes with music, when you get a bit too like analytical or constructive about the actual music, it's like the soul of it and what you're trying to communicate can get lost. So I'm like really new to composing, so it's still like a whole new thing to me. But yeah, I'd love to hear more about that, or like yeah, kind of how you approached, kind of how much you, when you're collaborating, you talk about things that aren't music versus like the technical things. And then, or perhaps kind of at the start of your career, how you found navigating that as well. So those topics are really interesting. Yeah.
Yeah,
I'll leave it to you.
I agree with that. I think in one respect, the primary focus is always the story. So I feel like Hayley and I would really talk about the story, the narrative, what we're trying to say, what's happening on screen, what it needs. But you know, this is a special case because she's a musician, that we could actually talk about music and it could be exciting and collaborative, rather than, I think what Hans is certainly referring to is he talking to a director who's not musical about music is very complex and can be slightly dangerous, you know, because everyone like played I don't know, trumpet and band in 8th grade and then, you know, thinks they're a musician. So one has to be careful in terms of how much you start kind of letting them under the hood, so to speak. But with Hayley, it's, you know, it was just such a different thing because she's, you know, probably a better musician than I am. So it's like, it was so much easier. And yeah, I mean, again, but I think you have to be, in terms of my experience in my career, you just like anything, you get to know who you're working with, meaning the director, and you kind of start to understand their language, you know, and that's how I kind of how I navigate that, is just like every individual is different. So certain ways of working will make one director comfortable and not and different for someone else. So yeah, it's just navigating.
And I would just add to that, like, I think from my perspective as the director on the other side, I think like when there would be like disputes or like, hey, I did this, and it's like, oh, I wasn't really thinking we would do that kind of a thing. I think what's a big strength is always going back to the story of like, kind of like, like your rebuttal is kind of like, well, in this scene, the feel, what we need to do is get this character to this point, and these are the feelings that we need to get, or this is where we're at narratively. So anytime there was a conversation of like, well, this is why I did it due to the story, as opposed to, isn't it sound great, don't you feel amazing, like, if you constantly are referring back to why you're making this film and what the story is and what the reasoning was as to why you went that way, for me, it's, the director is able to understand it a little better. And they still might not agree with you, but they're able to go, oh, okay, I see why you went that way. And actually, I want the character to feel more like this and less like that. And I think that that's also just a great way, like, whether the director is a musician or not, to always go back to the storytelling element of it, and being, using your music to be in service of the narrative, which is, you know, what the job is.
Thank you. That's so useful, because I can imagine, yeah, when you're working on music and you're like putting all your, you know, like all your soul into it, and then
yeah, it's amazing. It's great.
Yeah, I mean, you want it to sound good, but like, you're so right that it's a good way to like reframe it in your own head too, like to kind of deal with that when it like inevitably will get, you know, like when you pick music up, well, inevitably get criticism and feedback, that kind of like what is the service of the story rather than like what sounding good, just not a great way to measure it.
Yeah,
Like,
and
yeah.
and honestly, you could probably, there was like, I think there was a moment where Jess and I disagreed on a certain thing, and it was like, well, maybe it's just we keep the melody, but the sonics of it isn't right. And like, I think that's why when you go back to the story of like, oh, I added this flute and I added this because you want the characters to feel X, Y, and Z. And then the director's like, oh, well, I actually want them to feel this way. It might just be not even adjusting the melody. It could just be like adjusting the sonics of it. And, being like, okay, well, what about this? This supports that feeling more, like always going back to the story as opposed to like, do you not like the melody? Do you not like the sound? Like, and to me, I feel like that's the universal language that all of us have is story.
That's super interesting.
Thank you. Great question. Well, I want to make sure we get out of here on time because I appreciate our wonderful panelists' volunteer time so much. If y'all have a last anything you want to throw out, feel free. Jess or Hayley, any last tidbits?
Go see the movie in theaters.
Yeah, go see the movie if you can. We're so proud of this film, and like we said, it was made predominantly by women and all the heads of departments, which is very, very rare. So, definitely go support. We appreciate you guys hanging out with us today, and continued success to all of you and your creative endeavors. It is really hard out there, and I do think having a community like this and I think most women in this industry are willing to help one another. So, I wouldn't hesitate to reach out to creatives as you meet people, because I think we all know the struggle, and it's a male dominated world. And I think, we should try to help each other as much as we can, just getting the knowledge and experience to be able to do what we want to do. So thanks. And thanks to the amazing Jessica Rose Weiss, who killed it on the film.
Go listen to the music, y'all. All of it is out for streaming. Let's go see the movie. It's on tonight. Thank y'all so much for your wisdom, and it was really lovely speaking with you both. And it's just really exciting to know you two came together to make this film. I think it's encouraging for all of us.
Good, I'm glad. Thank you guys. Thanks, Connor. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah. See y'all at your next movie.